This is another example where if we're not careful we're going to end up with a degenerate surface. So we've got this area here we need to fill in with a surface, and we've got two edges, an edge and a curve, and if we just put a skin between that, for example, we're going to end up with 0 length edges there and there. The other option is we split this in two, but then we end up with a 180 degree corner, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that wouldn't be good either. So neither of those are good solutions. So the best solution is to take this curve, and we're then going to copy that. So we're going to do Control-C, Control-V, and we can just move that then into the center there, so it's snapping to that center point there. And the reason it's doing that is because I've got snap divisions of 2 on there, so it picks up that center point. And then we can go into top view and just scale that down to the size that we want. So this is going to form our 4th edge. So we're going to have that edge, this edge, that one, and that one. And there's going to be a little hole in the middle, but we'll sort that out in a minute. One problem that we got is that because I've scaled it around this center point, which isn't actually quite on the same Z height as the curve here, or the edge here, this needs to go onto that. And we want to keep that in the plan view exactly where it is. So if we pick that CV and just move it along this edge, you can see there's a snap point there again because of my snap settings. So I've got projected intersects and true intersects showing up there, so it's picking up the old position and remembering it and allowing me to snap back to that. So now those are actually snapped to that surface there. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a square in. If I just put the square in from these edges, first of all I'd need to split this edge. I'd have to trim that as a curve, and that wouldn't really help too much, because if I go into the square tool I would only be able to put position in, and I actually want curvature, but I've got to then create a surface to be able to do that. So I need to split this surface up into 3 bits. So I'm going to go into Object Edit and I'm going to detach that. So let's go into Detach. I want to keep with the originals, so I'm going to go round from here to this point here. So I'm just going to snap to that point using Control just on the end there. And we've now got, we should have now 3 surfaces there. So we've got the original surface and that one, and then the other one on this other side here. This one I need to detach here, so I can actually either detach it or I could actually extend it backwards. So I'll extend it again, snapping to that point using Control and clicking to that point. So we've now got this surface here, that surface here, and the original surface there. So we want to pick up these little edges here and create our square surface. So let's go into surfaces here. So I'm going to make this the first one, second, third, fourth. So the first and the third edges need to have curvature on, which is what I've got. Also want to put linear on. So I've got boundary 1 and boundary 3. I've got this collinear option. So let's go and pick those surfaces. So it's that one. This is the second edge, or it doesn't matter if I pick that one. It doesn't matter which order I do those in, but as long as the first and third have got the curvature on, then we're okay. And then that one there. So I've got curvature on here, and as you can see it's not quite curvature aligned. The other thing is that these lines aren't quite where we want them to be. We could play around with these values here, but actually that doesn't really give us what we want either, because I want this this hole here to be in a straight line, so we're going to have to use planarize hole to do that. So let's first of all fix this curvature here. So let's go into Object Edit and we're going to align that with G2 on, and I'm going to do it in the Z direction. So it says we've got construction history on, which we know, and then I'm going to align it to that surface there, and we want edge on, so that we get, and position influence of 1 on, so we get exactly what we want. And do the same thing on here. So I'm aligning it to these little short surfaces here. We won't worry about the gap at the minute, that doesn't matter. The other thing that we want to do is if we go into Surface Edit and planarize these holes, so I'm planarizing them in the view, and you can see we've still got curvature on there, which is great, because it's just using view based and closest boundary. It's just moved these CVs along these lines here, so it's maintained the curvature there, which is good. That's what we want. Now the only problem with this is we've got hole, so we need to fill this hole, And the best way to do that is, first of all, let's get rid of these surfaces here. We don't need those. So we've still got the original surface, and we can just simply extend that. So you notice that this didn't update because when I was in a line I didn't have history on. Obviously that would be a disaster if I had got it on, but that doesn't matter. Now going around a corner like this, because it's coming over quite a curved surface, usually what happens is that if we try and align this in one go, which I will try and do, so let's get rid of that locator there, and we'll find that we can't align that and this at the same time. So let's first of all, we'll put some curves on surface down here. So I'm going to go into project, and I'm going to put curve on surface. I can either use Z or normal. Because it's right, because this edge is right on that surface, then normal is absolutely fine here. So we want to do that, and then project these edges onto that as curves on surface, and then we're going to put the curvature continuity checker on there. Just check that that's okay, which it should be. And then if we try and align this as it is, we're not going to succeed, I'm pretty certain. So let's go into, we're going to have to project because we haven't got a curve on surface at the minute. I'm going to do it in Z. Now obviously the degree here is also a factor, so let's get rid of that curve. That's just going to annoy us. So the degree is a bit of a factor, that it's very low degree or relatively low degree for what we're trying to do. So if I try and project that in Z, you can see it's not going to do it. And even if I increase the degree in both directions up to 7 by 7, it's still not doing it. If I drop down to G1 to see what we could get, or even G0, we're still breaking the tangency here, so this is not going to work. And that's the typical of what happens in this area. So what we do need to do is split this surface up into 2 bits. So we're going to use detach again. So we don't want the originals on, we're going to go around here. So we're going to go from here all the way around here. Now what we want is the midpoint here. So if I go into the tab up here, or click tab to go into here, or click in that box and then put in 0.5, it'll give us that midway point. So we've now got 2 surfaces here. Also we probably want to increase the degree going around that, so let's make that 7. Again, it's quite a complicated shape here, so it's almost inevitable that we'll have to make that 7. And let's put it on our evaluation tools here and here, just to keep those in check, make sure they're okay. So now let's go and do an align. So we're going to align that. We're going to try aligning it with G2 project and Z first of all, see what we get. So you can see it's broken the curvature there. It's also broken the curvature there, but that's not too surprising because we should find that that sorts itself out when I do this. And because it's a symmetric condition there. This is not too far out. If we look at the display, it's not too far out. But obviously that's not correct. So let's try and align this back in. So we're going to use G2 edge. Doesn't need to be a partial edge because we've got a trimmed edge there, so we're okay. And that's now done the job. I can make sure that's aligned there and there. And you can see the position wise it's 0.006, so it's very close on this edge, but it's broken the continuity there. Also I haven't got vector on because we were so close. If I try and put vector on, the chances are it's not going to improve things. It's actually made no difference there, so I'm going to take that off. Usually that'll give us a slightly tighter alignment, but it may break things, of course. Interesting, the gap there is slightly different, but then I've got skew on. So let's take skew off. Again, it's still slightly different there, which is a bit of a surprise because it should be pretty symmetric, but it's all very small tolerances here. So let's try and align this. We've got a curve on surface there. We could get rid of the curve on surface. Usually it's best to get rid of the curve on surface and start again on this edge. So let's go into align and let's open up that menu. Now if I try G2 again, project Z, this is going to break this again, almost inevitably. You can see it. So let's drop it back one touch. So if I make it tangency, it doesn't break it so much. If I make it G0, it's almost spot on. Obviously that's G0, but let's go into here and just see whether it's actually G1. It actually is, or G2, and it's because the position got broken. that actually we were very close in terms of tangency and curvature, and this so often happens. It's quite unusual to be able to go back to G0 and then find that you're still G2 continuous, but that's what's happened here. So we've got this area here that isn't continuous in terms of G2, and if I just keep on going backwards and forwards trying to align this is probably never going to work. So the simplest thing to do is to just go into transform CV. We'll put loads of mouse sensitivity on, and we just try moving some points. Now it seems counterintuitive that if I move that point, which obviously affects position along there, that it might affect the curvature that in this direction, but that's the case. That is the third point along here, the third CV. So if I move that up and down, I do get to a point where that curvature is solved. It's opened up another gap, but let's go on to the next point, which now doesn't affect the G2 there, and just take it back the other way, and you can see the gaps coming down quite fast, and we only need to get it just below 0.001, and there we have it. So we can do the same thing on this one. This one's not been aligned yet, so let's go into align, and once more we'd use G0. So I'm using G0 project Z. That's made that position aligned, but let's go and check the curvature. So that's fine. Curvature across here is still okay. So we should be able to do the same trick where we just move that third point along, so that'll affect the curvature on that end. And I've got the mouse, the sensitivity right down. So we're now green on there, 0.002. Next point along, let's just get that down, whichever way it is. So we've got it now all within tolerance. And then the final operation is just to trim this out. So let's go into surface edit, and we'll trim it. So we don't need project on because we've got our curves on surfaces defined here. Let's just make sure that that does go all the way to the end. It does. And there we have it. And then if we take the CVs off, you can see the result that we've got. So we've managed to avoid that triangular corner, the zero length edges.